David Korins has designed some of the most iconic Broadway sets in recent memory: Hamilton, Beetlejuice, Dear Evan Hansen, and more. Now David's work is taking center stage at the Museum of Broadway for a limited time only. Here's Beth Stevens with another edition of Building Broadway.
Hi, David.
Hi.
What does it feel like to have your imagination on display at the Museum of Broadway? The whole thing.
So bizarre. It's so bizarre because it's not my imagination. I have a little sign out there that you see before you come in saying there is no such thing as a set designed by David Korins. And I believe that. I think what's so amazing and kind of out of body about this is that a set design is like an aggregation of hundreds and hundreds of decisions by hundreds and hundreds of people. What's so amazing is that there are quotes and contributions from people in my studio who I've been working with for years. There's like assistants and associates and illustrators and model makers and all the writers and composers and lots of the other members of the creative team and even actors are all talking about what it's like to make a set design. And it's really bizarre to have it all back in Times Square after it's been in the rehearsal rooms, in the theaters, and then all across the country.
Yeah, you had to gather it all back.
Yeah, so it's like,
and now it's just blocks from some of the theaters where they were.
It's like seeing old friends from high school, you know, and I've lived with these people, I've hung out with these people, and now they're back.
So is there something on display here that has a backstory that you might not know just by looking at it? Or is it just everything has that?
Well, almost every single model and rendering, these are just tools, right? So they're tools to communicate with a director and a creative team. They're tools to communicate with actors and talk about like, this is what you're gonna be interacting with. So people might not ultimately know the story, but there are like pieces of scripts, little doodles, original sketches, and one of the signs over there says designing is redesigning. There's like a pile of sketches that we did for Beetlejuice that was, you know, hundreds and hundreds of versions just to get to one piece of scenery. And then on the complete other side of it, there's my original sketch that I did during a reading of Dear Evan Hansen, in which I did a whole bunch of little sketches, and I opened it up on the first day of a meeting with Michael Greif, and he went, "That one, what's that?" And then that's the thing that became the show. So sometimes lightning in a bottle, sometimes, you know, 1,000 sketches.
Can you believe Hamilton opened on Broadway almost 10 years ago?
No, I can't.
And when you look at the Hamilton display, what comes to mind? Because you had no idea it would be this juggernaut.
So Hamilton has been this kind of like glowing, extraordinary road, and it's 10 years and seemingly getting stronger. It's been like a job of a lifetime, and it continues to go, right? We continue to kind of innovate. But when I look at the display, I see the original off-Broadway model. I see the notes that I took going into my interview with Tommy Kail. And in those little scribbles, you can see the pitch of the turntable, you can see the pitch of the Winter's Ball. I can hear in my head Tommy saying, "No turntable." And then 8 months later, we found a turntable again. But all of those little things, I mean, right there on the script, it says the Hamilton Mixtape. That's what that show was called when I interviewed for it. And now it really is a movement, right? Kind of like, it was the thing that really crossed over and made theater cool again and put it right in the center of the conversation. And then the next year, Dear Evan Hansen happened, and so it was sort of a bang bang all across the country. It was great.
This is the script, the front of the script.
Yeah, this is the Hamilton Mixtape script. I got this, even though I had done many shows with Tommy, he said, "I want you to interview for this job," and I took it very, very seriously, and I took all of these notes on my way in to kind of have a conversation with him. And there are the beginnings of, this is the turntable, here's a couple of different versions of how I thought we could open the show. I thought we could start with the Founding Fathers up on a podium, and they would lower down, and all these different things. And this is the beginning of the Winter's Ball. And really, like, if these notes hadn't happened and the conversation didn't happen, we wouldn't be standing here. I'd probably be like a barista in Massachusetts or something.
Right.
But
yeah, definitely.
These, I wanted to just like, you know, open up the kimono and show some really embarrassing stuff. But they're kind of important because they get you to the place where I think you need to be.
And I'm glad you found a photo of the pool.
Yes, it's the only photo that exists.
So this is something that was tried and then scrapped.
It's the only photo that exists. It came out of deep research with Tommy and the creative team. We saw all these monuments to all these founding fathers. Hamilton never got one. We thought, oh, the show could make a monument at the end of it. We built a 6 foot wide, 6-inch deep reflecting pool that would be unearthed at the end of the show. Alexander and Eliza met in this kind of beautiful, poetic light look from the extraordinary lighting designer Hal Binkley, and then 3 audiences at the public theaters saw that. And at the end of the 3rd preview, Tommy was like, we're cutting the pool. And we drained it, and if you look closely at the off-Broadway model, you'll see 2 recognizable rings, the turntable, and then 1 little ring inside, and that is the pool that lay barren for the rest of the run until we got to Broadway. But yeah, no one knew, there's a room where it happened, people like before the soundtrack came out, and off-Broadway, they like saw Hamilton, and then there's 3 audiences, about 600 people who saw the pool.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Maybe more people will know.
Did you ever think that the Beetlejuice Couch would be such a fan magnet? Because that's what we're sitting on right now.
Oh, I mean, I get more people sliding into my DMs about the Beetlejuice Couch than anything else. You should start a line of furniture, all this stuff. In the real show, this has a trampoline in it because all the Beetlejuice clones, use it to do gymnastics.
You didn't want that in the museum. You didn't want people to...
I just felt like it would be inappropriate for people to be bouncing up and down on this thing. But you can see the cast use it on Broadway because it's coming back for a 3rd time, which is such a weird, fortuitous thing. You sort of put these shows, or at least the objects that you make to make the show, you sort of put them to bed, and then the shows live on. But it's weird that we have 5 shows profiled here, and 2 of them are like raging strong on Broadway still. Yeah, you'll get to see this thing in real action. When you come to the Museum of Broadway, you get to like have it in sort of action.
One of the things that you touched on before is how collaborative this work is. Is there someone you want to shout out and give a little extra spotlight to that you've worked with for years that is on display here?
Yeah, I mean, in particular, almost every member of every creative team is represented here, but in particular, Rod Lemond, Amanda Stevens, and Justin West, who are my 3 longtime associates. Rod and I have been together. We were interns together in 1997 at Williamstown Theater Festival.
Wow.
We were then roommates in the East Village, and he was the associate on Beetlejuice and Hamilton. They all have contributions here as well, like, written quotes that they talk about their particular take on how to wrestle whatever's going on in my brain into paper and into 3 dimensions. And that's like an incredible thing to be working with someone for 27 years. With Amanda, I know exactly how long I've been working with her because my oldest daughter was 4 months old, so I've been working with her for 19 years. There's this extraordinary illustrator and designer that I work with named Javier Amajeres, and Rod Lemond, my associate, and we really dug in heavy on Beetlejuice. And so, I say up there, designing is redesigning. This is a little flip book that we put together of my sketches, Rod's sketches, Javier's sketches, and these are, some of them are just time and time and time again redrawing the same piece, tweaking the scale, the perspective. You can start to see, like, this board took 2.5 years.
Wow.
It took us 6.5 years to design Beetlejuice. So this is a tiny sampling of what is just like, when we were putting this together, it was like, how could I depict how messy and crazy and frenetic this thing was? Because we were probably ripping out 10, 20, 30 sketches a day.
Is there one of these shows that really challenged you, that you think about still, that really changed you even as a designer?
Here Lies Love, which was the first one I started working on and the last one to open on Broadway. It took us about 14 years. I mean, you and I had a conversation in that theater. That one was omnidirectionally challenging.
Right, because you reconfigured the whole theater.
Yeah, I mean, it was like we ripped out all the seats, we did the thing. It was the first show ever to have, 300 people standing up and moving during the show. I was looking at the statistics. There's a little board over there that like talks about the stats, how many linear feet of cable, how many light cues, all that stuff. And everything about that show was 5 times bigger than any show that ever happened. So that was a challenge. It also was a 14-year-long challenge. It's weird, like I have, children younger than that show.